Okay, so we're gonna try and recreate this. So in principle, we have a mirror image here of left and right side, and we're gonna integrate it into our circular symmetry as a child of that. So let's take a look. First thing I'll do is I'll create a cylinder with, I counted altogether 14 slices if I was to complete a circle. So I'll do that, 14, and then we can double it up to 28. So we have a secondary subdivision here. We can scale this down so we get like a surface that is a bit more like a coin. And then we can concentrate on this slice of the pie and then erase everything else, including including everything other than these two faces. Let's just get rid of. So there we go. Nice and simple. We subdivide, we get a nice transition here. We can also introduce like from the top view, we can introduce like a little cut over here, and that way I can introduce more. I can also smooth it once. This will give me more or less what I want. Okay, so let's start creating our symmetry and creating our folder structure. So let's do that. I'm going to group this. This is going to be called inner group. And then I'll group it again, and this is going to be called side L. And then I'll group it again, and I'm going to call it inner group. And then group it again and call it slice 1. So what did I do? Shift click on the plus, and we get the entire structure. This cylinder can move into the main inner group because the symmetry will happen inside of it. So this one we can duplicate special as an instance, and we'll use one copy with a -1 on the x-axis. So we have side L, and let's do side R. So we have two sides now. Each one of them has an inner group. And the inner groups is just the way Maya does instances. It works with the instances. Next, we'll select the entire slice and we'll duplicate it 13 times because we have 14 instances. And we'll use our calculator to divide 360 by 14, and we get 25.714. And we can now apply this on the y-axis as the transformation for each one of our instances. Let's do that, and we get a circle. Now, if we want to adjust the overall curvature, we can do it right now because of just tessellation, the way it works. And then if we select the slice, we can see the altogether like infrastructure that it takes. So if we move it like that, we're moving the slice. If we're moving the geometry like that, all of the instances will follow. So we can kind of move it further away if we want to have visual representation of the slices. Very slight, just in case we want that visual. Cool. So next, we want to recreate this pattern. So we have a center line, we have this kind of half circle, we have these corner portions. So most probably the way I would want to approach this is create these corner pieces um, around the center, this kind of design, because it's going to be easier for me to use the mirror function along this axis. So first thing I'm going to do is take the center line and convert it into a curve, and then I want to push this curve out because it breaks the surface. We can hide the grid. So I want to push it further out so it breaks the surface. Maybe not that much. And then I want to create my supportive stuff around it. Now let's select all of these geometries and we can put them on a reference layer or template layer, and it's going to be called our circle template, and it's going to have a color. Awesome. So now we can start designing. So we know each slice ends around here. I can start now creating my new curves. So CV curves go here. And I can start blocking it out. So like this, 1, 2, 3. Now, instead of linear, I would actually want to create new curves in, in cubic, like this. So let's try again. 1, 2, 3, and you see now we get a cubic interpolation, which is awesome. Curve number 1 is there. Next, we want to put a line here, so I want to create curve, and let's just bring it like this. And then this time I'll create linear, and I want to go from the center into the center. Okay, cool. And then I want to create another. Cubic, and then go from here to here. Right. Something like this. And we can play around with the scale of all of that stuff. So first thing we'll do is we'll just drop this one in our main inner group. So now it repeats itself. And then this one in the side L inner group. So we're starting to get a flower. So in this case, we can start to see that our curves are a little bit too big, so we can center pivot here, move it, and hold X actually, move it here, and then try and scale it, but scale it from the manipulator, like so. Maybe like so. And then adjust this guy, like so. And I can keep playing with this, right? So right now it's coming out too far. So I move my pivot point. Let's probably want to scale it down, move this point down, and so on. And we can keep adjusting our design as we please. So next, if I go into my geometry here, I should be able to adjust it so I can extract some extra useful curves out of this. So you see here, we have our secondary curve, so we can extract it like this, convert into curve, and then rebuild it with like a small amount with cubic interpolation. So now we can put this curve under the main inner group, uh, like that. And then the exterior, we can do the same thing. Can convert it to curve. So again, modify, convert, polygon edges to curve, and then we can decide, okay, maybe we want cubic, and then we can put it underneath our main inner group. So there's our template, and we can hide it. And now we can see, okay, what else do we need? So we definitely need this one, convert to curve, and then it can go into our main inner group, I'm pretty sure. And then we'll have a separation. So if I hide it, we get something like this. And we can keep adding things, like for example, I know that I need an angle here that would represent one of these guys, and then an angle here, and then, there's a bunch. So I'll start with this. By the center, we have a transition that goes from here all the way here. And then I can also duplicate it, center pivot, move it down. And I can play around. Okay, this one actually needs to be a little bit smaller, so I can move it a little bit closer. And then I can move these into my inner group of the left side. So we get something like this. And then over here I need something that would go through this. So I definitely need to maybe get rid of some points here. I need all of these points. And then move this one in this direction, like so. I can move it a little bit closer to the center, like so. So, and then I need to insert two small transitions here. So I could actually just move this one, rotate, scale, reposition, you know, and then just move this one a little bit closer to the center. It doesn't have to be perfect, but close enough. And then here we will need to fill it. So I'll definitely move this and this a little bit closer. Let's get rid of the soft selection. And then come in here and create at least half of what we want from this curvature. Curve. We can use a cubic and then insert it like so. And then put it in our left side inner group and then adjust it so it looks exactly the way we want. Something like this. So we're starting to get our circular symmetry to look closer to what we want. Now, what we want to do is create whatever would go underneath this to create our red color area. And you can apply this for all of the color variations that you can see here. So you see color variation here, here. If I can draw, yeah. Not sure why the line is coming through. In any case, let's start with this one over here. So the way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to create a new curve and just kind of roughly follow this curvature. Doesn't have to be precise. Like so. One mistake I made here is I created it in cubic and I want to create it in linear. So there we go. And I could also unite those curves, but I think I find this to go just a little bit more easily. And there we go. We got ourselves this shape. So now I'm going to shift right click, close curve, like this. And then I'm going to go into surfaces. And then we have a planar here. So I'm going to keep it linear. I'm going to use polygons. You can use general or standard fit might work. I'll create something like this. So a couple things I want to do here. I want to reverse. But before I reverse, you can go into the NURBS tessellate and you can play around with, like, you need to adjust either the poly count or the ratio, whichever of these will change. Right now for fit, I think it will just kind of go by default, but if we go with count, we can control our poly count, like so. Pretty easy to do. And keep it relatively small amount. We can switch from quads to triangles and vice versa. Doesn't really matter that much. So once we have this, we can reverse and then duplicate center pivot. And we can kind of bake it here and then just scale on the negative side, and then we can combine. And we got ourselves our mesh. Now, all of these curves that we now have, we can start with this one and we can create a sweep mesh for it. So it's going to be huge, but we can scale it down. So scale profile can go 0.01, for example, and then we can create a transition here so it looks nice, and like so. I can play around with just in general within the curve. It can be a little bit more interesting as it goes along. Can raise the precision, and then with more subdivisions along the precision, be able to adjust it further. Something like that. And now we can place it underneath our main inner group. And then we can continue with this one. Sweep mesh. And that's gonna be 0.04, for example, or 0.04. And we can again play around with the taper curve, precision. We can see the precision if we increase it. So right now it's very low, we can increase it a bit more. We get something like this. Right, and sweep mesh here, maybe 5. And then play around with the silhouette change, stuff like that. And then we can select the remainder. So this, maybe these can be smaller, but like these main ones, we can introduce uh, a single sweep mesh to control them, and then the scale would be 0.008, for example, and precision can go higher, obviously, like so. So these two will go into the main inner group, and then these will go into the side L inner group. And then for these little guys, we can create the rest. This one can go into the main inner group. And yeah, those little ones, we can create also a smaller one. So I can create a sweep mesh, and then 0.04 or 0.04. And then precision can go higher. And then, I don't know if we need 100, but like close now. Yeah, whatever. And then, we can play around with the inner volume, and then we can do the same thing also for these guys and play around with those. So yeah, gives you an idea of how this can look, and then once we're done with it, again put it inside L inner group, and we got ourselves a nice little representation. And we can also introduce some free here. So this one can be red, right? So I can come in here under mesh display. I can, where's the apply color? and I can select a color. So there we go. And we can apply all of the colors that we need in that kind of way. So this one actually needs to be like a darker red. You can change it. And this would be vertex color. So just keep that in mind. You can also apply a shader. So if I open color set editor, you see we have our color set and we can, uh, apply a different one. So we can go darker, get a different result, and keep on working on our circular symmetry. So a very powerful tool is the ability to create those flat surfaces. So for example, in this case, if I'm looking from the top, it's going to be a bit more tricky, but let's create another one. So I'm just going to create curve, and it's going to be, let's see, what do I want it to be? I want it to be linear. So I'll start more or less from the center here. And again, because they have this rim around them, we're not as concerned with them being perfect. So now I can close my curve, or I think it'd be easy just to close it and then creating a surface. So a planar surface. We can reverse our mesh. We can decide how to tessellate it. Then we can bake our pivot point, duplicate, scale, combine, and there we go. Now we can apply a different shader on it. Once we kill history, we can erase the original curve and then place those in our inner group. And now we have another element of our design added. So now we just have to add it over here and we're good to go.